It really is disheartening to be here today to talk about the issues we're going to talk about, but it's important. I'm Rep. Amos O'Neill, the chair of the Michigan Legislative Black Caucus, and today you see something rare in politics where we'll have a variety of groups, the Latino group, the Detroit caucus, the Asian Pacific caucus, standing shoulder to shoulder, but we're going to kick this off from the MLBC standpoint. House Republicans just voted to strip more than $640 million in previously approved work project funding, including over $350 million in state dollars from programs our communities rely on. This was not just a wish list. These dollars were already negotiated, voted on, and signed into law. Think about that. Negotiated, voted on, and signed into law. They disapproved funding for prenatal and infant support, mobile health clinics, mental health and community outreach, local food infrastructure. In my district alone, we have one of the highest rates of food insecurities in the state of Michigan. And one of the projects that was cut was for the East Side Soup Kitchen. The East Side Soup Kitchen, where people go to eat every single day. Now they have to hold and reduce their construction process as a result of those cuts. Right before Christmas, sounds like Scrooge to me, they voted to pull back jobs, services in our neighborhoods that are already carrying more of their hardship and strain. How much can our citizens take? How much pressure, how much pain do we want to keep inflicting on our citizens across the state of Michigan? Let it be clear, this is about respect. You cannot keep cashing checks written by Black, brown immigrants and working class taxpayers and then turn around and cancel the very programs those tax dollars and taxpayers were asked us to provide. So in response, our caucus, we will be reaching out throughout the state of Michigan and our communities, as we've been doing already, with civic engagement campaigns across the state, going into churches and schools and community union halls and community centers to explain and talk to our constituents and let them understand what happened at the hands of my Republican colleagues right before Christmas. Now, just before Thanksgiving, we had cuts with SNAP. Mm-hmm. Think about that. SNAP, Thanksgiving. Now, over $640 million just before Christmas. It doesn't make sense. It's a disgrace. We can do better than this as Americans, and as the state of Michigan, we can do a lot better than these decisions that were already pre-approved for the citizens of this great state. And with that, I would like to call out Rep. Grant, the second vice chair of the Michigan Legislative Black Caucus, to give the perspective from Grand Rapids. Rep. Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you all for being here this morning. I am Representative Christian Grant. I represent Grand Rapids in Wyoming and West Michigan. In my district, Grand Rapids, Wyoming, and across West Michigan, families plan their lives around the promises that this legislature makes. Promises about access to health care, food, safe neighborhoods, and opportunity. When House Republicans disapproved these projects, they didn't just cut line items. They broke promises and they cut lifelines for the people that we serve. Funding for local food infrastructure, community impact centers, mental health outreach, and dealing with the impact of lead poisoning is not abstract in this state or in my district. It means farmers being able to get food. This funding meant farmers being able to get food into underserved neighborhoods. It meant neighborhood-based organizations keeping young people safe. It meant families getting support before a crisis turns into an irreversible downward spiral. These cuts also have very real economic impact. They mean fewer contracts for small and local businesses, fewer jobs for residents who are counting on this work, and less money circulating in neighborhood economies, all right before the holidays when families and businesses are already stretched thin. I hear constantly from parents and seniors in my district who are juggling so many things at once, trying to find work, prescription costs, sky-high utilities, childcare, and the rising price of living. They are not asking for special treatment. They are not asking for pork projects. They are asking for fairness. And what that means is that the tax dollars that they pay come back to their community in the form of services, stability, and opportunity. When decisions of this magnitude are made outside of normal about this, we are not going to let these decisions happen in silence. I am committed to taking this fight beyond the Capitol, and I know that my colleagues are as well. Through our community and civic engagement efforts, we will be in Grand Rapids hosting town halls, budget workshops, and listening sessions so residents know exactly what was taken and why it matters. I want West Michigan families to hear this directly from me. You were not consulted before this vote, but you will be central to our push to restore these dollars and to rebuild the trust in this process. Thank you very much for being here today. And now, our Senate Appropriations Chair, Senator Sarah Anthony.
Thank you. What did Nancy Pelosi say? I'd like to say it's a good morning, but it certainly isn't one. It is not a good morning. The Michigan Legislative Black Caucus comes before you with a mission. Each year since this body was formed, we came with a mission. Black folks from every corner of this state came with a mission to fight for legislation and for appropriations for our communities. Communities that year after year after year have been overlooked. So in the first time since we all have existed, we finally got the Democratic trifecta. We finally elected the first Black Speaker of the House, the first Black woman to chair the Appropriations Committee. And with that power, we looked out for our community. We went line by line and said, where are the needs? Where are people hungry? Where do people need housing? Where can we fill the needs? That's why today we are so angry. The historic disrespect that the House Republicans took last week is unacceptable. All year, we have seen the Trump administration try to strategically erase us, erase Black history, erase Black representation. We all know what it means to be personally attacked. Lord knows the Speaker of the House can't keep my name out of his mouth. And we bear those attacks as elected officials. But last week's action came after our people, came after our communities. Enough is enough. So just know that we will use every tool in our toolbox in the state Senate, our Democratic colleagues in the House, working alongside our governor to restore these critical funds. Because it's not about the politicians that you see before you today. It's about the impacted communities. Sexually assaulted children here in Lansing will not be getting their mental health services because of the action yesterday or last week. Expected mothers may miss a paycheck because of the action last week. A housing project will be left half done because of the actions last week. A fire truck in Hamtramck will be stalled, meaning some life might be lost or property might be damaged because of the actions last week. This is serious. If we let this fly, if we let this pass, what can we expect next? Let's be very, very clear. Would this action have taken place last week if we didn't elect the first Black Speaker of the House last term? Think about that. This is the Michigan Legislative Black Caucus. Let's say the quiet thing out loud. This is a strategic effort to undermine and unroot the progress that these members made last term. Right. It's unacceptable. We will not stand for it, and we will not sit back and watch one chamber and one man try to dismantle the integrity of this institution. And with that, I turn it over to my colleague, Representative Young.
Pretty much enough said. The Detroit Caucus, I'm the chair of the Detroit Caucus, as well as the Democratic Caucus chair, and I happen to be the chaplain of the Michigan Legislative Black Caucus, and it is absolutely a time for prayer. Because this is something that will put you on your knees quick when you claw back money that's intended for the least of these. For people who haven't had a voice for nearly 40 years. That's what we did, as Senator Anthony so eloquently said. We finally made those investments in programs and in services that hadn't seen that type of investment in decades. And so then, with some little loophole in the law, there was an attempt, and not just an attempt, but they actually did this thing, $645 million clawed back. And so when we had a press roundtable on last week, we brought in some of the organizations that would be impacted. And so the gentleman from Detroit Blightbusters, who spent his life making certain that Detroit will be built up and lifted up, that crime would be reduced by eliminating blight, that children would be able to walk safely to school. He's concerned because he says his name is on the list. And so the good work that they've been able to do has now come to a halt. They've started affordable housing projects. I'm like, so what, we just get a basement because of these decisions? And then we had a lady who was part of 482 Forward. So she gave her comments. She said, wait a minute, I'm hearing about projects I didn't even know about. I came here to talk about our kids, and now you're telling me that Detroit horsepower that is right in my community, building up my community, giving us hope, a hope we've never had, is on the chopping block. I didn't even know that. I came here to talk about the fact that my goddaughter won't be able to get the assistance that they have counted on when her husband lost his job. To be able to get the diapers, to be able to get to their prenatal appointments, all of those things. Now it's all in jeopardy. And for what? To continue a culture of chaos. People are in flux. All of our phones haven't stopped ringing. Driving in today, you're like, oh my God, I heard that the Detroit Motown Museum is on the list. Channel 4 in Detroit said that. I'm just like, look, because the chaos is so real, we don't really know exactly who all is on the list. They can't even tell us. Our colleagues on the side of the aisle don't even really know what the heck they did. And it's so unfortunate because it has caused distress in our communities that was not necessary. We know it's the holiday season, and you think that, love should be the word. Is that right, family? Mm-hmm. But to one of my guests on Friday, she said, instead of love being the work, it seems to be coal in our stockings from our colleagues on the other side of the aisle. And so again, to Senator Anthony's point, to all my colleagues, we don't take this sitting down and we don't take this lightly. We're going to continue to uplift what's happened. We're going to continue to dig down deep and to see exactly what's been impacted. And then we're going to make certain that folks know that we're not going anywhere. House Democrats, Senate Democrats, we stand united. And Black people in particular, we stand united, the Michigan Legislative Black Caucus, into making certain that our voices will not be snubbed, we will not be silent, and we're going to fight to get that funding restored by any means necessary. With that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Also, I'd just like to acknowledge the speaker here standing with us, and we will take questions from the audience, and all of us are able, but we'll let our Senator Appropriations field a lot of those questions because she's our Appropriations Chair. So, questions.
Hi everyone, Lily Wayne from Gongworth. Senator Anthony, your committee is meeting this afternoon. Can you tell us at all, you guys, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, the deadline to reject any more work projects has now passed. So that option for retaliatory action has lapsed, but is there anything else the Senate plans or Senate Democrats are planning that we can expect to see in the way of, hitting back at this?
Well, first, I want to make one thing clear. We would never weaponize the Senate Appropriations Committee for retaliation. I think that type of environment that is being created by the House Republicans has not translated to the Senate Democrats. We do not stoop low when other folks decide to gravel in the mud. However, we will be discussing work projects and any other business before the committee, because lifting up the voices of people and having a transparent process is something that these grantees were not afforded by the House. So we are going to afford some of them the opportunity to do that in the Senate.
Reverend Neal, you spoke of the East Side Soup Kitchen, and I was at a groundbreaking here just a couple of months ago where they were looking at a huge expansion.
Yes.
Can you also shed light on your neighbors to the south as well? Flint water crisis, Speaker Hall said that the water crisis is officially over. Folks there were poisoned.
No. To your point, the water crisis is not over. And my colleague, Rep. Neely, she's been very passionate with the mayor's support, working to try to mitigate supporting the families. I know in this last budget cut, resources to the Flint area were cut, literally, okay? That will have impacted the families that were impacted in a diverse and a negative way of the water crisis. Not to add the RX Kids program. You talk about, we all love babies and senior citizens. We're supposed to take care of those. And so here you have a program that's proven to be successful. And in the Black community, infant mortality rate is the highest in the country. Saginaw has some of the highest numbers. My daughter flatlined twice as a result of not being heard when she said something's wrong. So it's personal for me, and I support the efforts that the RX program has done in terms of making sure families have the support that they need to bring that young person into the world. We talk about supporting pro-life and families. Okay, babies are here now. Let's take care of them. Okay, so if you're pro-life, which that's fine, when the babies are here, how can you cut? Think about this. How can you say you're pro-life and you cut services that take care of the basic needs of babies? It doesn't make sense. And so these cuts are devastating. And I think they're heartless, and the people need to know who's on their side. The Democrats are on your side. The Michigan Legislative Black Caucus and members of this caucus are on your side. The representatives that represent the Democratic Party are on your side. These cuts, just before Christmas, you had some cuts that came from the federal level during Thanksgiving and sort of mirrored those at the national level here at the state level. And the same is true now at Christmas. Where's the heart? We're elected by the people for the people. And as legislators, it's our job to take care of the people. These cuts does not take care of the people.
Other questions?
I have a question for Senator Anthony. Now that we're 4, 5, 6 days, I can't remember, since the House Appropriations took this action, do you have any sense of, there's been a lot of confusion, obviously, of like what has actually been cut? Can you elaborate if you got any more answers on the Whitmer administration or Speaker Hall on what they've cut?
This has been one of the most egregious parts of this action, is the lack of clarity and understanding. The fiscal agents, our staffs are working around the clock trying to get that clarity. As Representative Young mentioned, there's so much confusion across the state about who was impacted, how much money has already gone out the door. And as policymakers, I always like to tell us, we'd rather be right than be first. And as the news started to come out, so many folks started to spread misinformation just to get a little bit of a crumb to ensure that they weren't on the list. Can you imagine that? You're a grantee, you have a signed contract, you are beginning construction, you are beginning to feed folks, you are starting to implement, you have assurances from the state of Michigan, and all of a sudden, you are met with so much confusion. Wait, your last payment may not come forward. So the answer is we honestly don't know yet. And I think that was by design. This amount of confusion is just absolutely unnecessary, and it does harm the credibility of the state of Michigan. That's why I think we take this so seriously, is that when we go forward into our communities, when grantees and organizations and local governments want to partner with the state of Michigan to do good, because we all know government should not and cannot do everything. We need community partners. We want to make sure that our word is good, that our word is bond. And that's what the action did last week, is it made us less credible. That's right. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't also acknowledge some of the allies and supporters of the Michigan Legislative Black Caucus. Representative Price, Representative Morgan, Representative Reinigans. We also have Representative Song that is here. I think you are going to come forward and have a few remarks. Okay.
Thank you, Senator Sarah Anthony. Good morning. I'm State Representative Mai Song. I represent the 13th House District of Warren, Roseville, and St. Clair Shores. When they say that the Office of Global Michigan is waste, fraud, and abuse, they are referring to the Asian American community. When they say RX Kids and the Department of Health and Human Services is waste, fraud, and abuse, they are referring to new and expectant mothers and infants. When they say that funding to address the Flint water crisis is waste, fraud, and abuse, they are referring to Black children who have been poisoned by lead 10 years ago, who are now still facing life-threatening, lifelong complications because of their drinking water. When they say waste and fraud and abuse, they are referring to all of us. But let's be very clear, our communities are not waste, fraud, and abuse. The Michigan that I know, have always known, is one that is welcoming of people of all backgrounds and races and ethnicities and experiences. And while House Republicans might be colorblind, we are here to let Michiganders know that we see you. We are here to lift up the voices of others and to let you know that we understand that some people begin their lives at very different levels. And while we all want to be treated equally with respect and dignity, we recognize that there are some children who grow up in communities where the quality of education is different, where children grow up with parents who can't speak English and they have defunded language access, by the way. Children who are raised by a single parent or maybe a foster child or had parents that have never stepped foot in an educational institution and that they need just a little bit more help because of their life circumstances. House Republicans would never understand this because many of them have been handed everything on a silver platter. They rub elbows with millionaires and billionaires while average Americans are at a disadvantage because of social economic issues outside of their control. These programs exist to address this very inequality. And let me remind House Republicans that the Office of Global Michigan, which their speaker keeps referring to as waste, fraud, and abuse, also includes all of the ethnic commissions, the Black Leadership Council, the Chaldean Middle Eastern Commission, the Women's Commission, the Asian American Pacific Islanders Commission. We are better as a state because of those who call Michigan home. Whether you are getting Chinese takeout or pad thai or listening to K-pop or getting your nails done, behind every small business you support is an immigrant family, a mother, a father trying to raise their family in our state. They get up every single day to work and they are relying on all of us as elected officials of our state and stewards of their taxpayer dollars. And while House Republicans may be proud that they are saving the state money by clawing back $645 million, that is simply not true. This does not make your taxes go down. This does not put money back into your pockets. This money is going back into the general fund. And all of us will have to continue to pay taxes because that is the law. The government will continue to collect your taxes while Republicans are taking this money and squirreling it away. You better bet that January, come 2026, the speaker has already made it clear that he is going to expect all of these departments and nonprofits and organizations and local governments to come back and to beg him for this money, to make the case as to why they should have this money back. He even admitted during his press conference that some of these programs were not even waste, fraud, and abuse, but he still cut them anyway. So what problem is he trying to solve here? He wants to come in and pretend to be the hero after he has orchestrated and created this crisis. He is not being fiscally responsible. Being fiscally responsible means being efficient with taxpayer dollars. He's not putting money back into the pockets of working families. Instead, it's going to cost the state and taxpayers more money when they have to pause their projects and try to find ways to restart their initiatives, or to even take out loans and bonds to make up for their local government's gap. This includes $1 million from my own community for Parks and Recreation in Warren. And as residents know, because I know how much that money is needed, our local communities cannot even keep the bathrooms open at the parks. And if you had a child, you would know that taking your child to the park means you have to worry about where is the closest bathroom, or taking them home. You have to run home, that you might have to use a porta potty if there is even one available. And Republicans, they don't think about this stuff because all they think about is themselves. So don't listen to what they say, watch what they do. And we are here as House Democrats and Senate Democrats to fight back against this claim of waste, fraud, and abuse. As the co-chair of the APA caucus, I'm here to stand in solidarity with the Black community, the Hispanic community, because this impacts all of us, no matter what part of the state that we live in. Thank you.
Thank you, my song, and thank all of you colleagues for being here. Our work is just beginning. We'll keep you posted. I'm sure we'll have more press conferences to talk about next steps and things that we're doing in our district. So thank you for you being here today. Thank all of you for speaking. That concludes our press conference.